Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. When I say we're gonna have a good time, that is not risky at all. I am willing to guarantee that this video is gonna be fun because I got to play with some really fun products, but besides that, the techniques. I am one of those people who watches mixed media from the sidelines and wishes that I could do that. And so I decided to just jump in and give it a go. So that is what we're going to be doing. Some beginner things that if you want to dabble, no, it's not dabble. What's the word? Dabble? Grapple or dabble? If you want to dabble in the art of mixed media, I am here to tell you, jump in, let's have a good time. Before we get started, I have my grip mat. I can't recommend enough that you get one of these type of envelopes. They have like the plastic coating on the inside or outside of it. That way I can just store my grip mat without worrying about the dust and without having to put that acetate back on it. Super easy. So far it's working out really well for me. So highly recommend that. You can get them from, that one's from scrapbook.com, but you can probably pick them up anywhere. They just have to have that plastic coating to protect it, not like the open mesh. Okay, enough babbling. I got that one right. Let's move into what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to be making some cards with the concept and prospect of mixed media. Now, it's not the traditional mixed media that I necessarily see all over social media, but when you are mixing different mediums, it's mixed media. It's that simple. That's what we're going with. That's the definition for today's video. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out this heart stencil. The products I'm using today is actually from the new release from Simon Hurley. Really super cute release, and I was very excited to play with it. But whatever you have is fine. Now, one of the things I was so excited about doing with these projects was I really got outside my normal comfort zone. I usually stick with the pretty standard kind of things, kind of stenciling, the standard stamping, and I just really was excited to try something totally new. So this is a double layered stencil. So I took the other one and I'm using a different color. So I'm going with this brown, soft pink, and peachy kind of theme for all my cards. Very, very pretty, new for me, for especially like if we're going to have these in sort of the Valentine's Day theme. I usually stick with traditional colors, but I did it today. Now, I will notice though that my grip mat held on to that stencil stuff a little bit too tightly, and now I have some residue here. So I'm going to take an alcohol swab and it comes right up. So if you run into that problem, alcohol swab cleans it off. I'm going to also, kind of a warning, but also this is good news. Throughout this video, I'm going to talk to you also about tips and tricks of things I've learned along the way. I can't not do that. That's why I keep a lot of this extra stuff in the video, because I just feel like it's super helpful for if you're a new card maker, you're new at this. So yeah, so that's the one thing I discovered as I was making this video. Okay, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to take this stenciled background, which is super fun, but we are going to add an element to it that just jazzes it up and gives it a wow factor. What I'm doing here is I'm testing to see if my card panel is dry enough to put embossing on it without getting the embossing powder everywhere. Now, I want this to be in the middle of my MISTI, so I'm going to take out this Dollar Tree grip mat and I'm just going to place it right in the corner, and then I'm going to place my my panel right there in the center. Now, this is a background stamp with script. This is also in the release. I'm going to put my anti-static powder tool all over it, take some embossing ink, which is sticky clear ink, and I'm going to stamp right over those hearts. Now, I tested it out, so the hearts are dry, and that's what you want to make sure you do before you decide to go ahead with your embossing powder. So I like to stamp twice. Just make sure that you're not shifting around your paper. That's why that grip mat is brilliant. Sticks right in the corner. Again, that's from the Dollar Tree. And once I get that done, I'm then going to take my embossing powder and I'm going to pour that all over. And you're going to start to see this beautiful script show up. Now, it's really, I'm getting very excited about this because, again, not something I've done before nor do often, which is mix my looks for things. So here I have my stencil. Then I have this stamp. And now I'm putting embossing powder over it. It's going to give this beautiful raised look. That's another hack I show is I got those tongs with silicone end from the Dollar Tree, and I use that so I don't A, burn myself, and B, they're not metal, so it's silicone and heat embossing powder. If it sticks to it, it'll come off really easily. So I'm going to get this all set. Of course, I'm going to speed up some of the parts of the video that you don't need to watch, like watching embossing paint dry. All right, so I'm going to show you there up close. How pretty is that? Oh, I love it. Now, we're going to come back to that card. And let me tell you, that has to be one of my favorite cards I've made in the last year. I love it. But we're going to come back. That's at the end of the video when I show you how I finished it off. Let's do some ink smushing. So again, I'm going with this soft, orangey, kind of peachy and pink look. It's a very fun, soft color palette. I don't normally dabble, got it right, in this color theme too much when I'm making cards. I find that as I look back through my past cards over the past about 6 months, I'm very bold. I've been going with a lot of bold colors. So this is fun to kind of slow it down and do some pastels. Just doing some regular ink smushing. So this, I guess, would be the first of the mixed media pieces for this card. So I'm doing some ink smushing, and then I'm going to heat set that with my heat tool. You might notice I have 2 different heat tools. The first one is for heat embossing. It's more targeted toward a higher heat, and that's best when you're doing heat embossing. And then the other one from Ranger I just use to do sort of a drying of panels. All right, I went back in and I splotched it a little bit more, but here's where the second medium is coming in, and this is where I'm going to do some embossing paste. All right, I've been doing a lot of stenciling, so as you see me pull this out, this is a 4-layered stencil rather. You can just watch me stencil up some embossing paste on here, but this is a good opportunity to let you know I just had a live stencil class recently. It was so much fun. I had such a blast with everybody. Thank you all for attending, those of you that were able to make it. If you weren't able to make it, you can still have access to that replay, and with it, I have a 7 or 6 page download of a bunch of different stencil techniques, because that was the meat of it, is like, how can we get outside the box and use our stencils differently? Because I'm a huge fan. So if you want access to that replay, you can click the link below in the description box, and it'll give you directions on how to do that. Okay, back to this. So I'm using some scrapbook.com Cloud Whip. When you get your Cloud Whip, if you have it, you're going to notice it looks super dried out. That is normal. That's part of it. It's supposed to. You're supposed to sort of mix it upon itself to get that really creamy consistency with it. And so that's totally fine. If it looks dried out, it is not. Just get to whipping it up. I guess that's why it's named Cloud Whip. So, all right, I'm going to place this down over my thing, and I am doing this super haphazardly, like just wherever I feel inspired to lay it down, and it's even kind of smushing, and I'm really trying not to care. Probably why I haven't dove into mixed media too much is because there has to be a little bit of a loss of control when you're doing it, and it's totally worth it and totally fun. But that's probably why I struggled. Now here I'm going to add some embossing powder to this. Now in a class I taught a long time ago, I don't know if those of you that attended, I did this technique where I put the powder over it and let it sit off to the side and let it dry. I let the embossing paste dry, came back, and I heat set it. I'm doing the opposite now. I'm actually putting it on the embossing powder on it, but then I'm heat setting it right away. And I would probably prefer the first method. Let it dry off to the side and then heat set it, and you're not going to get these little white bubbles coming through, because what's happening is the embossing paste is bubbling up. It does also give it kind of a cool effect, but at the same time, I would prefer probably to just let it dry fully. Then don't shake it or anything. You don't want that powder to come off. Then heat set your embossing powder. So that would have been kind of cool to do. Moving on into showing what I'm going to be using on top of these cards. I had a little pugapoo for 12 years. His name was Bo, and he was my doll baby, and I still miss him to this day. So I decided to play with the pug first. And so this is a really cute set, very all-encompassing, talking about sending hugs. There's congratulations, birthday, a graduation, a cocktail, like really a well thought out and a diverse stamp set. So I was excited to use as many stamps as possible. Now, side note, I don't know what happened to my lighting. It looks like the sun is setting, but that'll go away in a minute. Also, side note, I have this new handy dandy tape dispenser that holds big rolls. If you didn't see that in my last alternative craft supplies video, can't recommend that guy enough. So easy to pull my tape off. All right, let's get into this card. Now I'm taking the stamp that looks sort of like a firework, and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it all over the background here. I'm on another ink smushed background, and I'm going to do I guess another mixed media type. This is not that different than the last one in that I'm doing again some heat embossing on top of my background. So the very first card was a stenciled background, then heat embossing with script. Then we went into some paste on top of a smushed background, and now we are doing just regular heat embossing with gold. Now I did add the gold embossing to my projects, and that is sort of the third or fourth color in the color theme, and I think it levels it up into a really beautiful, classy kind of look, and you'll see as we start to put these cards together. So I'm going to cut this one down to a A2 size card, which is a 4 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to use, now I have two here essentially. I can use that other piece for a card if I wanted, but I'm just going to take this one piece and we're going to get to finishing off this card first. Now, in the spirit of playing mixed media technique and kind of getting comfortable with that, I'm going to take my ink pad that was one of the colors here, and I'm going to just spritz it with water. We'll put it down on my craft mat, spritz it with, this is actually a glitter marker, so I can get a little bit of that glitter look on top. So I'm going to mix that into the red, and then I am going to just splatter it. It's very, very subtle. You don't see it a lot when it shows up. So I noticed that it was only showing up very, very subtly. It's a very light pink color. And so I decided to just take the background and just start dabbing it into it. So now I'm getting a little bit more of that noticeable color showing up. All right, now this embossing dabber is amazing. So I'm going to use this a couple times in a couple different ways. The first way is I want some more of that gold. So I'm going to just rub this ink right on the side. Now this is the clear sticky embossing, but in a dabber form. And I'm just going to dip this into my gold embossing powder. Now for my most used embossing powder colors, I do have them in those larger containers. So I have clear, I have white, and I have gold. So I'm then going to heat set that, and now you can see I have this really pretty border around my card that is not perfect, right? It's going to be thicker in some places, thinner in others. It looks a little speckled here and there, but we're going to go with that because I love this look. I'm going to take the balloons. I'm going to stamp those out with VersaFine Nocturne Clair ink onto watercolor cardstock, and that's because I'm going to be doing a little bit of watercoloring, and that ink is friendly for it, and it makes it very simple. It won't bleed or get blurry or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to run that through my little mini die cutting machine. I do this over and over and over, and through the magic of video, you don't have to watch me do that. You could just magically see the finished results. All right, so we're going to do some really fun coloring with these, and it makes it so simple if you just put a couple different colors down onto your craft mat, and then you go in, and because it's watercolor paper, it's going to take it really well, and you just start picking it up just like that. And if you don't want to get inky, put a pair of gloves on, or you can even do the entire background of the smushed background first and then die cut through your die cutting machine, and then you don't have to do this part. So either way, it doesn't matter. I feel like if I wanted to change up the colors, this is a better method. So like here, I want to get way more orangey ones. So it really doesn't matter, just whatever you're inspired to do and whatever you have fun with. And I just kept doing that, and I got a bunch of these balloons, and I thought they were so fun to make. And they're super cute, and we're going to use almost all of them on the background. Okay, moving on, I'm going to add the confetti look to the balloons. You know, when those balloons that has sort of the gold or silver confetti in it when you blow it up? Well, that's what I'm adding to these little balloons here. And I thought that was a really nice added touch. Also pulls in the gold color. Okay, let's do some stamping here, and we're going to start putting these cards together. So first I have my little pug, my little Bo Billy was his name. I have my VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. Now I'm stamping him in this because I am going to do a little bit of watercoloring with my real brush pens, and that is those are the brushes from Arteza, the ones I'm using, that actually have the bristles on them and they're water based, and so this ink won't smudge, so I'm good to go with that. And I am using Bristol Smooth cardstock. Highly recommend Bristol Smooth for this technique because I find that even watercolor doesn't give me as good results. So I'm going to take my pens, and this is where you color direct onto paper, and then you take either a water brush or a blender brush and you pull those colors out. Now I don't have time in this video to go through the entire step-by-step recommendations or how to do this, and I've sped it up quite a bit. But I do have a class if you want to do it. It's a very short 1-hour class where I go into great detail about the best paper and why this is the best paper. I'm going to walk you through techniques on blending and all of that. If you want to dive a little deeper into the real brush pen technique, you can check out that class listed below. So again, very short class, but I believe that it will give you a lot of good insight. Just a little side note for those of you that are on my email list, you check first because you might have already gotten that class. I sent it out for free for everyone over the holiday season, and so I would hate for you to double get that. So another plug for joining my email list because I give away free stuff all the time. Okay, back to the card. So I have finishing up with my pug here. Now my pug was considered what's called a fawn, F-A-W-N, and that's the color of the pug. And so I tried to make him match the best I could. All right, we're finishing up his coloring with a little pink tongue. I totally forgot that I had a coordinating die. So I fussy cut this guy and the other animal that I use. I think it's the panda, forgetting completely that I had the dies. When you fussy cut your images out, one of the best little tips and tricks I have learned along my journey from other people is to use a black marker to outline the outside. It cleans it up. It helps you forgive any mistakes that you might have made while cutting. And it just makes it look really, really nice. So I would recommend holding it like this with the image facing away and then using the marker that way. This way, if you slip with the marker, it writes on the back of it, not the front. All right, so I'm going to try to de-warpify this background or this panel a little bit by using some double-sided adhesive. The double-sided foam works the best for de-warping your cardstock. This is a good method, but I do find that the foam works the best. Only you have to consider if you're mailing it, how thick can it be, etc. So just stuff to think about. Here's another tip I've shared in the past. Remove the mouse pad from your MISTI and use the corners to get perfect placement for your background, your panel onto your card base. So I have the card base in the MISTI sitting in the corner, and then I'm going to place my panel corner to corner just right on top of it. I'm going to press down without hesitation because I know once I line up that very first part, it's going to line up perfectly. And boom, there it is. We got perfect alignment. So that is a tip. If you're not trying that or doing that, I highly recommend it. If you're not using liquid adhesive, which kind of gives you wiggle room, that's a great tip. I just went ahead off screen and heat embossed the Sentiment Make-A-Wish, and I'm going to heat set that here in a second. And then what I'm going to do with that is just cut it down, and it's going to be the sentiment for the front of the card. All right, let's start putting this card together. I have all those balloons. I have a super fun background. Now this is a busy card. This would not be considered a clean and simple card. But I went with it all. I thought it was really fun, and I think it's a really happy card. So we're going to start putting this down. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my balloons down. I have them laid out, but I don't have them glued down yet. I am using the new, what is this? This is the glue press from My Sweet Petunia. and I wanted to give it a go and try it out. I, so far, am really impressed with the fact that I don't have to squeeze it so hard. I'm not, though, through the half of the bottle. I have heard that there's a potential for it not to squeeze past a certain point, like not having trouble with it if there's only half of the glue left. So I'm not there yet, but so far I think this is a really, really great invention for those of us that have difficulty squeezing bottles. I do have an alternative option for you in a video I just released, much cheaper, different, but still the same concept if you wanted to check out that video if you haven't done so already. So I popped up my little pug here, and then I'm going to put Make a Wish. It looks like he just has his arms out for either a hug or to hold this beautiful sign for the recipient. So that finishes that card there. Let's go on to card number 2, and we're going to finish off this super fun background. Now everything's really dried at this point. I know I heat set it, but it was still a little soft because it was embossing paste, so I put it aside to dry. And now we're going to finish it off. I'm going to cut this down to be a slimline size of 3.5. I think it was 3.5 by 7.5. I think so. So I think it was a lot shorter than my normal slimline sizes. I decided to add a little bit extra mixed media, take back out that heart stencil, and just hold it down and add a few additional hearts. Now that ink pad needs to be re-inked, in case you're wondering why is it coming off so splotchy. I just have to re-ink it. I cut out or stamped out my panda. I die cut it this time. I got smart and remembered, which made that process a whole lot faster. But I had a smudge because I used VersaFine Nocturne ink, and that is very smudgy if you don't let it dry. So I took this little, it's like a sander. So if you have a little sander in your stash, it cleaned it right up. So I was very, very happy about that. I didn't expect it to clean it so well, because I thought, oh, this smudge right on his white tummy. But it looked great. I'm just taking a gray marker here and I'm adding a little bit of shading. I am not overthinking it. I am really just adding a tiny bit because I'm keeping him black and white. All right, so now I'm back to trying to deep warpify this background, and I am using the foam tape this time. And like I said before, I find that this does it faster and it just straightens it almost immediately. And then when I put it on a card base, it's really straight and it's good to go. So I'm going to place that down, and I do have to chop off a bit because I cut down my panel a little bit more. Great thing about slim lines is it really doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what size it is. You can make them as small, you can make mini slim lines, it's whatever. So I stamp out my sentiment here. It says, I can't wait to hug you. And then I'm going to finish off this card by putting a wobbler on my panda. So the wobbler is that mechanism for like an interactive card that once you put it down on your back of your person or your image, you can then make it shake back and forth. My kids love these. They just can't get enough of the shaky shakes. So there we go. We're going to shake them up. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to slow it down because you got to see him slow-mo. There he is. He's doing a dance. All right, let's move on. We are moving on to the third card. You're going to get to see all these cards in still images in just a minute, but this is, I love this card. Like, I know you can hear it in my voice, how happy I was to put this card together. And it all came together because I stepped outside my comfort zone and just experimented. I cannot recommend that enough. So I'm going to use that embossing dabber, and I'm going to go around each of the hearts. I'm then going to just roll them through my embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set them. Now this vellum is thick vellum I showed in a recent video on my alternate craft supplies. If you saw that video, you know this is the stuff. It die cuts beautifully, and it heat embosses amazingly. So I'm going to heat set all of those, and I should have pulled out my silicone tongs, but I'm using my tweezers. Silicone tongs are better because the tweezers kind of almost left a dent in the center. It didn't, but it looked like it was working its way there. And here we go. We have this really pretty background. I'm going to show you the comparison of before and after, what the hearts look like without that lining of gold and with it. You can see right here what a difference that gold embossing makes. Wow. So highly recommend that technique. Give it a try on your vellum. I'm going to take some white cardstock. I swipe the ink pad over it, and then I heat set I Love You with gold embossing again. And I'm just going to slice that right down to a rectangle size. Now this is what's going to help my vellum hide the adhesive, because I'm first going to put some foam tape on the back of my sentiment, and I'm then going to use the sentiment as sort of the placement. Now I take that and I place it right over my hearts. I pull it up, and then I'm going to be able to put more adhesive right behind that sentiment. So there we go. We are not even worried about any glue. I'm also going to put the glue right around the gold piece of the heart. Another good reason to use this technique. You can heat emboss the outside of your vellum, and then you can glue right behind the heat embossing, that color, that gold. So that was a really great, surprising find for me, because otherwise I have difficulties finding ways to hide the adhesive behind my vellum. You can use full sheets or big pieces of double-sided adhesive. That would probably work well. But anyway, this is what I had to go with today. I'm going to place that down on my card base in A2 size form, and this is going to finish up these 3 cards. Now I'm going to show you all 3 cards here in just a second, but as I head towards the end of this video, first of all, if you're still here, wow. Thanks for hanging out with me. This was a really long one for a card making video. I usually don't talk this much, but I really want to take this opportunity to encourage you to have fun. If you've been wanting to try mixed media, to dabble with the technique, go for it. Just jump in, have a good time, and copy this. If you want to just try my techniques, copy them. You're going to find little nuances of things that you like to do in your own way as you're going through the process. So just get started with it. All right, just to recap a couple things I shared with you in this video. All the supplies I used will be listed below in the description box, as well as the stencil class, the Real Brush pen class, and my email list subscription link. So if you want to join me over there, I do try to send out a lot of great freebies and updates and new classes and discounts and all that good stuff. So if you want to join me there, I'd love to have you. I will see you all down in the comments below and in the next video. Bye-bye.